We prepared a narrative report, 6-page short, of the 2 priorities, outlining really the discussions, deliberations, and so on. So this is the report that we will distribute both physically and through emails. The first part of the report really outlines the background information of the meeting, where we are, who is present. So it's really covering the logistics around that. We then outlined that the meeting was chaired by the Director General as the current chair of the Employment Working Group in terms of the presidency. We also highlight the guest of honors who graced our event, being the Deputy Minister and the MEC for Economic Development, Gauteng. 1.3 deals with our guest of honor in relation to who was here, the Deputy Minister and the MEC from Gauteng. On discussions in relation to issues that were under consideration, we highlight the fact that the Deputy Minister indicated the status, or what we call environmental scanning, reflecting that the world of work is grappling with multiple changes. In addition, we also highlight that it's facing a series of interrelated crises, and we outline those: economic stagnation, joblessness, energy price increase, and persistent poverty. In her input, the Deputy Minister encouraged BRICS member states to look critically at how to build sustainable enterprises, spur innovation, and enhance productivity, amongst other things. We also highlight that she reflected on the theme of this meeting, ensuring decent work, dignity, and respect for all, pointing out that as South Africa, we are keen to achieve this goal through 4 priorities that are then outlined. We then highlight that for this meeting, of the 4 priorities, we're only focusing on 2. As this presidency, so with this presidency as South Africa, we had suggested, and in consultation with our colleagues, agreed that we needed to explore how do we optimize the relationship between productivity and decent work. And we agreed that we need to encourage each other to create policy environments that enhance and promote productivity. In that particular approach, our long-term goal would be to address pervasive low productivity and poor working conditions in general. We then received a presentation from the ILO in line with our theme or priority, and it was really looking at the relationship between productivity, decent work creation within our current situation in BRICS. The presentation in terms of statistics reflected that 7 out of 10 workers are employed in small economic units in BRICS. It also confirmed what we had already been talking about, that is low productivity and decent work deficits being more pronounced in these small enterprises. We identified internal factors that contribute to this, being below average management capacity, limited to resources and skills markets. But key, also identified, and a number of delegates spoke to this, was the weak social dialogue and collective bargaining functions, which impedes job quality gains. We then in terms of the report, reflected on certain elements that, such as education infrastructure, that contribute to this situation, and these were provided as the macroeconomic drivers of productivity growth. We accepted the fact that productivity growth can benefit both workers and enterprises, but acknowledge that in some BRICS countries, informal work is pervasive and productivity gains are linked to transitions to formality and better working conditions. Furthermore, to create positive correlation between productivity and decent work, we thought it is necessary to extend social protection to uncovered groups, and we'll hear more around this issue from the presentation from our social BRICS research network in relation to social protection. But there's a need to also close skills gaps in the formal economy, and we saw the statistics around gender representativity. So it's important that we promote opportunities for men and women. We then received inputs from the respective member states where they shared experiences in promoting productivity and decent work around the micro, macro, medium enterprises. And we all heard that commonly there's a suggestion on how labor market sector can contribute to achieving productivity growth and decent work throughout the economy. We feel that we have a role as the labor market entrepreneurs to ensure and promote growth and productivity. And broadly, there was endorsement and commitment of BRICS member states to promote sustainable enterprises and establishing a clear link between productivity and decent work. Furthermore, members expressed the need to continuously improve our knowledge of the link between productivity, national employment, and sectoral policies, amongst others. Another important point related to the promotion of sustainable enterprises concerns. The indication or the discussions pointed also to the present reality of enterprises, especially SMEs, as well as the future employment prospects for many workers. Implied in those engagements was that member states must therefore accelerate the formulation of agile and responsive policies to ensure that workers who lose their jobs have new employment opportunities in other occupations, as well as opportunities to reskill and upskill, and in any temporary unemployment process. Key element added to that is to ensure that both workers and entrepreneurs have access to social protection measures. So to achieve all of this, it is quite important that we look into a more integrated policies at national level to ensure that we enhance collaboration between BRICS countries to shape our complex puzzle where productive and sustainable enterprises are leading to more and better jobs. Practically, this was part of the emphasis of the meeting, that as a BRICS, we need to work as a collective. We need to continue sharing best practices so that we can benefit from this collective. And as we continue enhancing working together, we're building this brand in terms of external influence in the forums where we sit as a collective. We then presented an issue of a possibility of collaborating or establishing a collaboration platform to discuss what we call productivity ecosystems, within our already existent agreement of the strategy for BRICS Economic Partnership 2025, as indicated, adopted during our engagements in Russia. We touched on a practical example of a productivity ecosystem, presenting progress on the South African project that also includes Ghana and Vietnam. As the presidency, we proposed the creation of such a collaborating platform for discussing the BRICS productivity ecosystem, as indicated within the context of the strategy for BRICS Economic Partnership 2025. We indicated that we would want to launch formally such an initiative during the LEM, Labor Employment Ministerial Meeting, in September 2025. Sorry, this 2023 days, 2025. Our assessment of the proposal was that it seemed to gain attraction from the BRICS member states. And as a way forward, we would be consulting and working with the ILO in consultation with ILO offices in the respective BRICS member state countries to look at what we could now put together as a formal concept note that we can convene in May during our second employment working group to agree to as a project proposal. We shall be sharing naturally that proposal prior to our next meeting in May. The second priority discussed was on promotion of labor rights and decreasing decent work deficits in the context of the recovery. The presentation here alluded to the world and the labor market being confronted by multi-layered crises and challenges. And we all agreed that in this situation we find ourselves, the importance of rights and standards in the world of work for establishing social justice and decent work for everyone is not only a matter of choice, but it requires conscious efforts to ameliorate the damage to socio-economic outcomes. And this goes to the heart of our meeting as BRICS to ensure that accepting that we come from different environments and different challenges, but there are commonalities that we can learn from in terms of taking the way forward. Again, the ILO provided an overview of fundamental principles and rights, which we used as our key area of focus, also giving us some insights into the legislative and policy framework in place in each of our countries. Added to that simple discussion of fundamental principles and rights at work was the key element of what we call our heartbeat, the Centenary Declaration on the Future of Work, which affirmed that we as member states are committed to these rights. 4 pillars were an outcome in the declaration, which will outline what were they. And these pillars stress the importance of ensuring that technological advancement and the changing nature of work are harnessed for the benefit of all. We argue and point out that the ILO Centenary Declaration on the Future of Work should and continues to serve as our roadmap in ensuring that the world of work evolves in a way that is sustainable, inclusive, and equitable for all. There's no doubt that we need to create a conducive and enabling environment for freedom of association, collective bargaining, and this requires a combination of legal and institutional framework. As emphasized around the room by many delegates, strong employer and worker organizations are not an alternative. but part of the equation. So we need to ensure that we assist in building our social partners' capacity to engage. In this one, we have to be honest, and we tried to be as open as possible in accepting that as BRICS member state, we come from different labor market conditions. But what was key in terms of the presentations that the colleagues presented in relation to their domestic labor market was that we have each taken different steps to protect our labor rights within our respective jurisdictions. We highlighted the challenges including informal work, insufficient social protection, and lack of job security. But we agreed overall that promoting labor rights should be high in our agenda as BRICS member states. We accepted the impact of COVID-19 in our economies and labor markets. And then we also agreed that to ensure recovery, more attention or additional attention and additional efforts need to be paid to restore and increase the potential of our economies. It can't be work as usual. And in this case, supporting each other as BRICS member states in advancing the fundamental rights, principles and rights at work, in sharing best practices and knowledge on labor market governance remains essential. In pursuit of our decent work and emanating from the Durban call to action, as the presidency, we have encouraged member states to scale up action to accelerate multi-stakeholder efforts in the prevention of and elimination of child labor. As such, we called on our BRICS member states to agree to a program of updating each other on their implementation during our annual meetings.